Episode 2 Suspicion had me gagging, gasping, and clutching my pearls. Everything and everyone was acting a little suspicious, and I'm here to break it down. I'm Dr. Tia Key, your bestie bento, and this is my breakdown of episode 2 of The Summer Hikaru Died. Now, I haven't read the manga, so I'm going in fully blind, and in this video, I'm going to recap episode 2 while sharing my theories and sharing my overall predictions for what is going on as of episode 2. So make sure you watch until the end and drop your theories in the comments so we can figure out what's going on together. So we start the episode off with Yoshiki and Hikaru learning of Miss Matsuru's death. And in my episode 1 recap, I mentioned that I had doubts that Hikaru was actually Miss Matsuru's killer. And as of now, I am still sticking to that theory. First of all, Hikaru struggled with pronouncing Miss Matsuru's name, despite the fact that the killer seemed very confident in knowing who she was. But when Hikaru finally says the name correctly, it kind of triggers Yoshiki. Like we're taking back to the killer knocking on her door, even a photo of her past. When we focus back on Yoshiki, he's staring at Hikaru as if he is suspicious of him. So I don't know what he's thinking or what the connection there is, but I'm starting to look at Yoshiki like a little bit sideways. And while all of this is happening, Tanaka, the mysterious spirit hunter guy, is making his way into town. So, this entire first half was a great way to set up where we left things off in episode 1 and where we are headed now. But before we can get into it, we are hit with the opening song titled Sakai, which is reunion in Japanese. And it is by Bondi. And let me tell you, the vibe fits perfectly like best friends, going on an adventure type vibe. But at the same time, oh no, something's happening. But that's okay because we're best friends. Like, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's what it is. So, returning to Yoshiki and Hikaru, they are now at school, and the conversation around Miss Matsuru's death is naturally the topic. There's a rumor that she died by stuffing her hand down her throat, while another believes she was cursed for seeing something she shouldn't have. Now, seeing something she shouldn't have is actually confirmed by the townsmen when they are examining her home. But what I found interesting about this particular classroom exchange is that Yoshiki keeps constantly glancing at Hikaru. And I call this glance his bang eyes. Like he's not looking with his actual eyes, but more so through his bangs. But soon we learn that one of their classmates is concerned about the forest he has to go through to get home. And this spooky little conflict is one of the examples of the unusual activities that is happening in this town. And naturally, wanting to join his friends in exploring this forest, Hikaru stuns everyone because his past self actually had a fear of spooky things. But more importantly, I want to know, why was Hikaru in the forest alone if he has a fear of spooky things? And was there something more important for him to do that forced him to overcome this fear? So I really do hope we find out. Back in town, we finally meet Mr. Tanaka, who is so late meeting some of the townsmen we first met in episode 1. For added background, we learned that the town blames Tanaka's company for creating the mess that the town is currently experiencing, which I'm assuming is the spiritual activity. However, Tanaka explains that his company is responsible for cleaning up the mess and that they also prevented a corporation from altering the land, potentially making the entire spiritual issue way worse. So, going through Miss Matsuo's things, we get a glimpse at her scribbled notes about the Nonuki. We also discovered that her child disappeared years later. Can I just say, I had a deep satisfaction when we discovered that Tanaka said that whatever she feared in the mountains became more attached the more she feared it, because that is precisely what I predicted in my episode 1 breakdown. I theorized that these spirits are connected to emotional connections of humans. Honestly, I think this is why the men in the room felt a little bit uncomfortable when asked if they knew Miss Matsuru well, because this dude right here is most definitely her ex lover. And I know Mr. Tanaka had an attitude and was looking annoyed because he didn't speak up. But while all this conversation is going on, we notice that the hamster is running on his wheel. And we saw this little guy briefly in episode 1, but this is also the second animal we've seen that had some sort of reaction towards the spirits, which could explain why Tanaka relocated to Mr. Takeda's house and put a barrier up due to the hamster sensing danger nearby. And can I just say, what is up with him adding all the sugar to his tea like he is L from Death Note? Like, is this some sort of like soft reference? Now, there has been a lot of discussion around a failed ritual. And although we don't have a lot of information, episode 2 does provide just enough for us to piece together what may have happened. Tanaka mentions that he did visit the mountain earlier that day and found a bag Hikaru must have had with him. And inside there is a shrunken head, which is powerful enough to ward off spirits. But it was just enough to, I don't know, did something to the it, which resulted in it escaping, and now it is living amongst them. And this theory is also confirmed by Rei, who is the Takoyako lady from episode 1, who mentions to Yashiki that she felt a terrible air from the mountain and suddenly it was gone. But now it appears it's it's following him. And there's also a third mention of this from one of the townsmen who says that Hikaru's father also suspected the same thing. But does he know the thing that is nearby is possibly his son? That I don't know yet. But we do get the cutest little flashback of little Hikaru and his dad. Their family has an agreement with the forest to protect the family, so the Yunuki can't take them. Instead, they take the person that is closest to them. The dad basically says, if you ever fall in love, make sure you marry that girl right away. So that way she becomes family and therefore protected. So I think we can all agree that Yoshiki was the closest person to Hikaru. So naturally, he would want to protect his friend. Now, let's assume marriage is not an option, but maybe there's another way, maybe a ritual that could be done to satisfy the spirits or to at least give additional protection to his friend. And based on that logic, my theory is that Hikaru tried to perform a ritual to protect Yoshiki, but it didn't go well. And as a result, the very thing that Hikaru tried to stop from taking Yoshiki took his body instead and is now walking side by side with his friend. So, if you still don't believe that theory or even think that's possible, there is actually more proof in the next scene. So, let's go ahead and get into that. We are now back with Hikaru, Yoshiki, and their friends, and they are about to enter the forest. And I just love how they used manga panels to emphasize extreme emotions. And we also saw this in episode 1 where Hikaru is like overwhelmed by the deliciousness of his food. So I really like it, and I hope they incorporate more of these elements throughout the show. And I know I said this in my last video, but it reminds me of Uzumaki, who had the aim of bringing its successful manga intensity and storytelling to anime. However, their aim was a bit too high, which resulted in the anime being a flop. But cute little inserts throughout might be the way to go about this, at least for this anime. Everyone eventually goes through the forest, and in the end, it was extremely uneventful, which I found very hilarious. However, on the way back, a spirit does appear and locks onto Yoshiki, who seems to be the only human in the group that can actually sense it. And oh my goodness, this thing is so creepy. It reminded me of the bent neck lady from The Haunting of Hill House that's on Netflix. So, like, it's zigzagging its way to Yoshiki with the intention of latching on, only to be crushed and eaten by Hikaru, but not before getting a couple little licks in. So, it was going down without a fight. And for all of the BL lovers out there, we finally get a little bit of flirting with Hikaru telling Yoshiki not to look at anyone else but him. So that was cute for a little bit. Karu also says that he is the only one that can latch on to Yoshiki, and, I don't like that. And when Spirit Hikaru says, "I don't gotta take him, he's gonna stick with me anyhow," and when he looks at him, he's staring at, like, this golden light inside of his chest, like, I'm assuming this is Yoshiki's soul. We do see this light before when the bent neck lady monster appeared, and Hikaru is saying, like, "Imma make sure nothing steals him away," and I'm just I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. But soon the group meets back up and we see Ah, who is the short hair girl. She most definitely knows something is going on. She was muttering back at the high school about sticking together. And she was also the one that heard Hikaru's attack, that little snap attack. And she reacted quickly. She grabbed her little girly girl and dipped out. So that's a real good friend. But what I find a bit unsettling about the whole thing is that Hikaru is aware of her. We see him looking back at her, so I'm really hope that she stays safe, but I'm also curious if she's going to have a bigger role. Now, obviously, if your bestie suddenly ate a spirit monster, you'll want to know how. So, we found ourselves as viewers witnessing one of the most unsettling scenes I have ever seen in a very long time. And I truly believe the creators wanted us to visualize this moment from the discomfort and unease of Yoshiki looking at Hikaru with his bang stare, but also the use of real imagery of raw chicken. Like that is something a lot of us has touched in real life. So it literally gave us the image of the feel of the coldness, the sliminess. Like basically Hikaru had all of us inside of him. Now I won't make a joke about him saying it's been a while since he felt something alive inside of him. I also won't make a joke about Hikaru describing it as a real good pat on the head because I'm sure it was a real good pat on the head. But I did not appreciate the BL implied jokes being ruined by Hikaru suddenly pulling Yoshiki in. It was almost as if his cells got activated almost. He just wanted him to become like a part of him. But look at his face. His face looked way too calm about it. Yoshiki breaks the ice by making a joke and laughing a little too hard if you ask me. Remember, Hikaru said he will kill him if he act any other way. So don't forget that, people. They friends, but this dude's a hostage. And then we find ourselves with a distraught Yoshiki. This poor guy is just trying to get home, and all he can think about is his hand feeling that raw chicken meat. But luckily, Yoshiki is broken from this thought thanks to the takoyaki lady from episode 1. She is back. And we learn that she is a housewife, and again, her name is Ray. And she warns Yoshiki that he is getting close to something dangerous and he needs to get away from it. But whatever his reasons are, she's there to talk to him whenever he is ready. So they exchange information. So now we have another player in the mix. The episode comes to an end with Yoshiki thinking of Hikaru. At the same time, we catch glimpse of a cicada struggling to shed its shell, only to be consumed by ants. And we actually see this imagery early on in the episode. And in Japanese culture, cicadas are often a symbol of rebirth. And according to the National Museum of Natural History, cicadas have a life cycle ranging from 2 to 17 years and spends most of their lives underground. And this life cycle is often seen as the passing nature of life. And to continuously see it in this episode makes me think that it's a metaphor for what happened to Hikaru. Maybe he tried to evolve into something new to protect Yoshiki, but because he failed and died, his body was almost put back together, but was no longer what it was originally. And so that is how the episode ends with a tainted cell busting through the cicada skin. Like, ugh. Listen, episode 2 doubled down on everything horror. I mean, we had Yoshiki's grief was drenched in danger all episode, literal raw chicken meat. Like, it was a lot, and I loved it. There are still so many questions. I know last week I did ask, are emotional connections what drive these monsters? And yes, it does appear that way. We still don't have an answer on what is the Unuki Sama. And I'd also like to replace an old question that I had, which was, what was the backstory of the other monsters? I don't care about the other monsters. Instead, I want to know what is the backstory of it, assuming it is the Unuki. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So go ahead and drop your theories in the comments. And if you're into it, give this video a like for more breakdowns on The Summer Hikaru Died.